Good afternoon. First, thank you to the Casual Game Association for allowing me to help educate you about the Chinese market. And if you're in the phases of development right now, some things to think about while you're developing, or if you're ready to publish, you can kind of think if you should prioritize or not prioritize the Chinese market. Okay, so first, a little bit about SkyMobi. We were Sequoia invested about 6 or 7 years ago, NASDAQ IPO about 4 years ago. Okay, and SkyMobi, right now the bread and butter of the company, and as it has been for the last 8 years, is our Maopao app platform. And essentially this is an app distribution platform that is pre-installed on smart devices in China. So we partner with OEMs and the operators to do this. So as of last quarter, we reported having 30 million monthly active users with about 400,000 new users on a daily basis. And that's because there's about 1 million Android phones sold every day in China, and most of them are these lower-end, locally developed and manufactured phones. And we do partner with the vast majority of those guys. The other side of the business is which I focus on, is our publishing arm. And right now we partner with 100+ distribution channels in China. For the aspect of distributing your game in China, for billing, we have a great SDK that we partner with the operators on for SMS billing. And also, one advantage that we have is that we do have our own traffic. So we're able to really test your game before we push it through other channels. Today, China first. I think most of you are probably mobile game developers and have already adopted a mobile-first strategy for your next games. So now I'm going to suggest, why not China first for your marketing? And so we'll take a look at the top 10 games in October, so you can have an idea if your game fits the genres that are popular today, and also preferences and trends of the largest user market in China. And those are people who live in the 3rd and 4th tier cities. So first, some market information. Of course, these are always impressive numbers. I'm sure you've seen many of these before. There's more than 500 million mobile internet users in China, and the penetration rate of mobile internet users is 80%. That means most people are accessing internet for the first time on their own mobile device. How many devices are in China? As of a couple of months ago, more than 800 million devices. That's more people than living in Europe. So more smart devices in China than people in Europe, which obviously presents a huge opportunity for the mobile gaming market, especially as the numbers suggest that 97% of the mobile devices have played some sort of game on it, or at least opened up a game on the device. So another reason to consider China first when you're developing your game is that, according to some marketing companies like Fixtu, the cost for installations globally has increased quite a bit over the last year. These are numbers from this September, the previous September. So if the cost to acquire users is increasing, can we really afford to buy users? If not, what sort of other strategies should we consider to guarantee downloads and revenue? And you know what? If Hollywood does it, if Hollywood focuses on China first, maybe we should learn from them as well. In 2013, 2 huge blockbusters, the Bond movie and the Transformers movie, both integrated a lot of China, whether it's Chinese actors or scenes taking place in China. And so the idea is, how can we make our game especially attractive for the market? And of course, a part of what will make it attractive is the art and some of the items in the game, which is something that your publisher can help you with if you decide to go that route. But if you don't, of course, you should consider some of these things for yourself, and not just the art, but also some of the technical aspects of the game that will. I ran out of power, or I lost my voice. Both of those things happened, maybe. Okay. So let's take a look at the top 10 games in October, according to Qihoo 360, which is probably the top distribution channel in China this quarter. And so the top 10 games, in order from 1 through 10, were Luando Shio. So essentially, I want you to take a look at two things: the art of these games, and also the genre of these games as well. So here we have a battle arena game taken in the top place, a match 3, and actually, these guys launched their game in China and built up their user base months and months and months ago. I would actually not suggest a match 3 to enter the Chinese market going on forward from here. Chinese poker. Dragon Oath 3D. So it's actually one of the harder core games that you'll see in the top 10. And in fact, in recent months, most of the games in the top 10 have been more casual and mid-core. But recently, we're seeing more growth in the core games. This has been a top game for more than a year. In fact, it's the third sequel to it, or I guess the second sequel. This is based on the Legend of Dota. So it's here you see the cross-genre, the MMO, cards, strategy, and they're able to pull it off very well. Puzzle game. These guys. A shooting game. And Plants vs. Zombies 2. And so we'll go through these very quickly again. You'll see, I think 8 out of the 10 of these games, the art, you could call it's pretty bright. Bright, beautiful, vibrant colors. Maybe not so much Luando Shio, but so in summary, these games, when I saw this list, I was a little disappointed because I wanted to give you a very clear picture and something easy to remember what sort of genres are going to be working in China, at least these months. And obviously, it's all over the place for October. So you have a strategy and a runner, puzzle, match 3, strategy card game, MMO, RPG, Chinese poker, and so on. But if you want to sum it up, though, in these more casual mid-core and core games, I would say that 4 are casual, 4 are mid-core, and 2 are core. And that's still kind of where the market is in general. And let's take a look at last month, or in September, because it was a little easier to lump some of these genres together. And yeah, so strategy, runners, fighting games were the more popular ones in September. So SkyMobi, since we began international developer outreach about 6 months ago, we've signed 6 games. And to give you an idea of the games that we've decided would be a great fit for the Chinese market, we have Dungeon Quest, a action RPG game. Major Mayhem. This was first published by Adult Swim a couple years ago. And actually, we just launched it in China last week. And we're pretty happy with the numbers, about 500,000 downloads in the first week. And luckily, there was already a fan base for Major Mayhem. And so we launched the Chinese version. And we're pretty happy with the first week. And it's been launched through 12 channels. Can you imagine launching a game through 12 different channels? King Pele, there's a movie coming out later this year about the life of football superstar and legend Pele. So it's a great IP move for us. Ski and Fred, a runner. A strategy game from our friends at Game Insight, Battle Towers. And we signed these guys a couple of weeks ago. Fantastic racing game, great, beautiful graphics. So, now you have an idea of kind of what art is popular today in China, some of the styles, some of the genres that are popular. Now let's take a closer look at the market and exactly what are their preferences. And when I say the market, we at SkyMobi, we like to look at the third-tier cities. And you've probably heard of cities, Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and the first-tier city, I believe, is Tianjin. So these are the cities you've heard of, But really, it's the third tier cities and lower that you've never heard of that actually make up 60% of the gamers in China. In fact, well, here's a chart that shows that right there. And so luckily with SkyMobi's distribution reach, with our partnerships with OEMs and operators, we reach the bulk of these guys. And so we do have our Maopao platform, like I mentioned before, and we gave a survey to 2,000 of these guys, of our users, and asked them some questions about what kind of games they like, why do they like certain aspects, what are they willing to spend money on, how do they find the games. And these are some results that we received. And so I'll just point out the biggest answer for each of these next 4 slides. Chinese users typically love challenging games, but that doesn't mean it needs to be difficult from the beginning, at least. So we found that having a great tutorial that doesn't force them to learn so much so soon in the game is very effective for retention, especially for those gamers that are first time or first, let's say, month or quarter gamers. Also, there's definitely a big social aspect in China. So multiplayer games are a great incentive for users to play, and rewards. So how do Chinese gamers choose the games? Well, it's based on a description, which, so it's very important to have, I think, a partner, or at least a translation company that can really understand the Chinese market to actually write an incredible description for you. And so I think paying a translator to translate your own current description is not going to cut it. And so you can see here that it's important to at least find somebody in China who knows the games market well that can at least help you with that aspect if you decide to self-publish. Number of downloads. Nobody wants to do something that's unpopular or untried. And ratings as well. Similar story. How to choose the game. I think this is pretty similar to what we'll see in the West. So kind of rankings in the app stores, referrals from your friends. But you'll see mobile ads come down pretty low. And it's kind of a different topic, but essentially in China, the user acquisition through mobile advertising is not so strong yet, like it is in the West. And so something like 90% of revenues from most publishers in China come in from in-app purchases. And most of our user acquisition does not come by buying ads. It comes from working directly with distribution channels. Why spend money in a game? I would say this is pretty similar as well to North America, at least. But I think what might be most interesting is buying items to decorate. I think Chinese love to spend money on customizing and seeing maybe themselves in the game. Okay, so those are some preferences as far as subjective preferences. Now here's some technical requirements for what you need to consider when you publish. Still, today, most Chinese gamers will download through data. And that's because outside of the first tier cities, Wi-Fi is not so widely accessible, which is definitely changing, but still it's the point that people are using their data. And in China, you can actually buy plans for like 50 or 500 megabytes, for a pretty cheap amount. But that's because maybe you cannot afford a couple gigs of data. Therefore, of course, who's going to spend a fifth of their monthly data on your game? And so we look at games that are, well, at least until recently, we would say 50 megabytes or less. But I think now we're more open even to like 80 megabytes. But still, it's a lot smaller than I think many of the bigger, at least more core games that are out there. And I don't have the exact number, but I think it's something like 60, 70% of all mobile devices in China are considered lower end, which means performance as well is a consideration when we decide to publish a game. And now there's fantastic local companies like Xiaomi that's taken a different business approach, that they're making high-end phones at a low cost, but making their money from software. But as we see companies like Xiaomi becoming more popular in China, we'll definitely see these processing powers increase. Okay, I think that's it for now. We're based in Hangzhou, which is right outside of Shanghai, by an hour via bullet train. So if you're in the area, definitely feel free to stop by the office and say hi to my team. I'm based in San Francisco myself, but yeah, here's our team. And thank you for your time, yeah?
Do we have any questions?
Okay, I have a question for you guys. So who here has their game currently in China, either on the App Store or working with a publisher? Okay, so who here has interest in the Chinese market? Okay, almost everybody here. So it's not because there's just a chair that you can sit in. Okay, so there's definitely interest. It's just a matter of how do you enter the market. And of course, there's quite a few publishers that you can work with. But at the same time, I think more and more it's easier to even do like a self-publishing route. It kind of depends on your own game, your own personal resources. But we're always very happy to take a look at the game that you're working on and determine if we feel like it's a fit for the Chinese market or feel like it's a fit for our own portfolio. So feel free to find me this afternoon or the next 2 days as well.
Thank you.